Well, hello there. I didn't see you come in. Make yourself at home. Have a drink. While I give some attention to some underappreciated characters and storylines that I personally love. And I hope you grow to love as well.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Matt's Minis. Today, we are reading Swamp Thing number 95. And just a little catch-up from what happened last time. There was a serial killer on the loose in Houma, and it turns out that the axe from the Axeman murders that really happened in New Orleans somehow made it into the possession of a musician who I'm not sure if he was the murderer, or I know for sure the great-grandson of the Axeman himself was the one killing people with a different axe, but they made it seem like possibly maybe the lead singer was also a murderer. But at the very least, he was using the axe to play music, which sounds crazy, but he would just hit the bloodstains with drumsticks, and each bloodstain would make a different note. So eventually, the killer ended up going after Swamp Thing's daughter, Tefe, and Swamp Thing had to go kick its ass. So that's pretty much what happened in the last issue. And first things first, on issue 95, we got the cover here. We see little baby Tefe is playing with a little baby Swamp Thing. And they're playing in the mud, as you do when you're a baby. And in the background, we see the ground is made up of like old Swamp Thing corpses. And we also see that this is written by Doug Wheeler, and the art is by Pat Broderick, with inks by Alfredo Alcala. And we start off in the middle of the night where a truck is hauling toxic waste, and they're doing it at night because I'm not sure if they're doing it illegally or if they're just, trying to keep it on the down low from the citizens that all this toxic waste is coming to a treatment plant in this area. But either way, as the truck is driving, it is pouring rain. And we're not really seeing it, but they're kind of implying in the narration that the rain is washing down the truck, and that wash is being contaminated by chemicals that are on the truck. And then that water is going into like the local waterways and contaminating the area. And I'll just read the narration because it sets a really good tone for the book. It says, "Dark are the hours when the migration takes place, moving in shadows across the breadth of the land. Hiding from the daylight, it travels by boxcar, in barges and planes, on highways and rail, the nightly procession to be rid of our refuse, the ritual march to the burial grounds, the toxic waste from our factories dumped on our doorstep, supped into our water to be carried away. A few dumpings here when no eyes are prying, a tad more spilt there where no questions are asked, a network of poisons washed magically southward to a faraway land where dragons abound. Does a tree make a sound when nobody's present? Does the earth feel abuse if there's no one who cares?" So under those last couple narration lines, we get panels of some guys accidentally spilling some chemical waste and it going down into like the river area or waterways. And then there's like a pipe that has some runoff coming out of it, also running into a waterway. And then that water is, merging with a larger river, and then that river is going to Louisiana, and that's the faraway land, until it reaches the home area of Swamp Thing and Abby, where we see those discarded bodies from Swamp Thing just sitting in the toxic water, and they are rotting faster than usual. And then we cut to Abby and Swamp Thing, who are close by, and they are playing with Tefe in the swamp. And Tefe is growing pretty fast. They're all astounded that she's learning how to walk so fast. She's kind of still shaky on her legs, but she's crawling around pretty good and then is trying to stand on her own. And Abby and Swamp Thing are commenting about that. And then they're also commenting about how worried they are about her use of powers, because since the last couple issues, we've seen little hints of Tefe having, some certain kind of elemental powers, being the daughter of, Swamp Thing. And also she's the daughter of John Constantine, who had corrupted demon blood when Swamp Thing took over his body to have Tefe with Abby. So as the reader, we know that, but as of yet, Swamp Thing and Abby have not discovered that fact about Tefe yet. So far, her powers have kind of manifested in the baby just making flowers grow and being able to change like shapes of wood and stuff, or at least make trees grow in different shapes. And they think it's cute, but they also are like, well, what if she like hurts herself? Like, what if she makes a branch grow too big and it like breaks off and crushes her? Or like something stabs her as it comes out of the trees or whatever. So things like that. And then also like it might be dangerous for them, or at least Abby, because, the baby could destabilize the tree that they live in or something like that. So they have concerns and they're kind of talking it over. And then Swamp Thing kind of says, maybe I should ask the Parliament's advice. The Parliament being the Parliament of Trees, of course. And Abby is very upset of that because it seems the last couple of issues, Swamp Thing has been bringing them up a lot. Like, should I talk to them about Tefe? Should we let them know? Or should we introduce them at least or something? And understandably so, Abby is very angered at the mention of the Parliament of Trees because, these are the people or beings that have tried to kill them and tear away Swamp Thing from her, and also kill Swamp Thing completely because they wanted a new elemental protector, and that was, what ended up becoming Tefe. And then Abby also brings up that Swamp Thing was supposed to retire, and that's why they were trying to get the new elemental in the first place, like they were trying to help it come along. But that elemental seed or sprite ended up becoming part of Tefe because they used that seed as part of her conception. So Swamp Thing responds to Abby saying, yes, but if I retire, if I only knew how, then the burden would fall on Tefe, and neither of us wants that. I am sorry. I should have thought of that before I asked you to have our child. And this is like a passive-aggressive move, it feels, from Swamp Thing. He's looking to the side as he says this, and it kind of makes him seem like passive-aggressive or something. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but it comes off like that because right away, Abby's like, oh no, I didn't mean it that way. I'm sorry I got angry. I guess we're getting past the honeymoon now. You've always been on some journey, or I've been in jail or in hiding. This is the longest period together we've ever spent. So realizing that, they just had a little argument, Abby puts Tefe in her crib for a nap, and she goes over to Swamp Thing and grabs one of his yams suggestively and says, now that we finally have this time, we shouldn't waste it arguing. So they're about to go have some sexy time. Then we cut to the swamp, kind of close to where they're at. It's just outside of their house area. And we see that the contaminated water has begun contaminating all the plants and kind of rotting and dissolving any of the Swamp Thing bodies that are around. And as part of that, we see the ground where those bodies are kind of decomposing. There are these pods or sacks that are growing humanoid shaped things in them, and there's someone talking over this panel of growing bodies, and it says, all those toxic wastes being dumped at night in the chemical corridor are washing down here into Terrebonne Parish. Who knows what effect it's having? And then as we turn the page, we see that there is a meeting going on, and the person who said that last line is a woman that's part of Chester's eco group. So this group is meeting, and they're basically discussing what they're going to do, what causes they're going to protest and what causes they want to fund. And they're just kind of going through a list of different things they can do as a group. And one of the things they bring up is the toxic dumping that is going on from a company we've heard of before. This company has moved back into the Louisiana area, and that company is the Sunderland Corporation. So even with General Sunderland being in hell, his corporation has started back up, and they have begun disposing of toxic waste. And this time they're doing it legally. Previously, they've just been dumping barrels and stuff in the swamp that were just legal dumps. But this is actually, they've built plants that are turning toxic waste into supposedly non-reactive road materials. So when they pour asphalt to make a road or a street, part of that, or I guess some of that, is made up of toxic waste pellets, they say, and it's supposed to be non-reactive, so it shouldn't be a problem. But apparently they've had studies where it says that this stuff will, when rained on, leach into the soil and waterways of surrounding areas. And besides the usual face of Chester and his wife, Liz Tremaine, there's another person here that we've seen before a long time ago, all the way back in issues 36 and 37 of the Saga of Swamp Thing, which is the Alan Moore run, and also the first appearance of John Constantine, by the way. And this guy, Wallace, was dumping chemicals for a mining company from Pennsylvania, I believe. They were driving all that waste down to Louisiana and dumping it in the swamp, I guess, to put it as far away from them as possible so they have plausible deniability. And Wallace here has joined this group because not only did he feel bad about polluting in those issues, but also in those issues, his wife and son were killed by a man who was corrupted by those chemicals. So he has become part of this group kind of as penance for that. And then we cut back to Tefe, who is crawling away on her own. She's been able to form a hole in the crib that Swamp Thing made out of plants. And so since she can now kind of manipulate plants herself, she has been able to escape this crib, and she's out on her own, and she's going towards the water's edge. Now, we had just heard about this water being contaminated, so that's no good. Of course, you don't want babies getting near toxic wastewater. But in this scene, we also see that she is able to walk on top of water. Or I guess crawl is more apt to what she's doing, because she touches the water and realizes, oh, it's deep or something. And then she just kind of crawls on the water until she reaches this little like muddy land area. And that is the area where those weird humanoid creatures are being like born or grown in these amniotic sacs. And as she gets closer to them, we can actually see that there is like a Swamp Thing baby in each one of these things. And as she approaches one, we see it burst open, and a Swamp Thing baby comes out and sits next to her, and they just start playing together. Then we come back to Abby and Swamp Thing, who have just finished up with their sexy time. And as they're kind of having some pillow talk, Abby notices that Tefe is gone. There's a hole in the crib, and she freaks out and runs to try to find her. And luckily, Swamp Thing can feel her presence, so he says, "I can feel her nearby on the side of the bayou." And with that, he kind of snaps into action, and he actually like forms himself into some kind of weird like water creature that she can stand on and like ride over to where Tefe is. And as they run over there to her, they see that she is just playing with a Swamp Thing baby. And then we cut to the front of the Sunderland Corporation, where Chester's Eco Group has begun picketing the front entrance of this area, and they're trying to stop the toxic waste trucks from delivering the toxic waste to these road pellet material factories. And there's a bit of a funny exchange by Chester and Liz here, because Chester brings Liz to this protest, but I guess he forgot that Sunderland was the people that tried to murder her for like a long time. So he's just oblivious to that history. I don't know why he didn't think about it, but he goes up to her and he's like, "Oh, Liz, are you okay?" And she's like, "Well, I'm a bit nervous because, this place is owned by Sunderland, my former employers, and, they tried to murder me a bunch." And he asks if she wants to leave, but she says no, she does not, and that she's got to face this. She says, "The people who ordered me killed are all dead now. I can't stay frightened forever. Besides, I'm part of the group. I belong with them and you." So as she's saying that, there's a bit of a commotion because there's a toxic truck driver that is driven up, and he's angry because he's got to make his delivery. This truck is his livelihood, and this is what he's been paid to do. And they're blocking him being able to make his delivery, and it's causing him to be hit behind schedule, which means that he is losing money because time is money, as we know. So he gets out of his truck and he begins to yell at them. And out of everybody there, Wallace, the kid from issues 36 and 37 of the Alan Moore run, stands up to this guy and he says, "We're not moving. We're standing our ground." And Chester, of course, is like, "Right on, Wallace." Because, he's a hippie. He's probably high right now. So the truck driver is very mad when he gets told off by this young man. And so he gets super pissed and he's like, "They're all going to end up going to jail." And then he goes back to his truck and he sits there for a while and he looks at his watch and he's like, "Damn, I'm running late. I'll lose my rig if I don't deliver this load and get over to Orleans on time. Well, we'll see who the real fool is. I'll make them get out of the way." So he proceeds to rev up his truck and put it into gear and drive forward. I'm not sure how fast he's going, but fast enough that the people see him coming and they kind of freak out. And everybody's running away except Wallace. He is kneeling down in front of the truck and he's saying, "I'm not moving. I'm going to make up for all I've done." And Chester tries to kind of pull him away. And he says, "They've already taken my life away, Chester. I won't let them get anyone else's." And as the truck kind of bears down on him, Chester grabs his collar and his arm, trying to get him out of the way of the truck. But Wallace has decided that this is the way he wants to go. And he says, Treasure, I've paid. I can join you in heaven now. As the truck hits them together, so not just Wallace, but also Chester gets hit by this truck, but Wallace gets the brunt of it. He obviously gets crushed underneath it, and Chester hits it and kind of glances off to the side, so he definitely hits his shoulder and head on the pavement, but he doesn't get any of the truck damage. Then we cut back to Abby and Swamp Thing, who are looking at the birth sacs, I guess, of these Swamp Thing babies, because there's more than one. And Swamp Thing is saying, "It seems that the tubers from my discarded bodies have taken root." And then Abby's like, "But you've dumped these bodies all over the place, all over the world. If this is happening here..." And then Swamp Thing's like, I do not know. It may simply be these tubers' proximity to us which caused them to develop like this, or perhaps some other reason. This plant will not last. I feel it dying. It has aborted some toxic element, a pollutant from the water. There are traces in our home, but its size is protecting it. And there are traces in all the plants nearby. And then Abby's, of course, like, well, what about Tefe? She's sitting here, and she's been in the water, and she's been playing with stuff. And Swamp Thing says, "She is safe, but there is some in you. How do you feel?" And Abby says that she feels fine, so she doesn't seem to be having any ill effects from the contaminated water, at least yet. Swamp Thing also mentions that the little plant babies that were born from these amniotic sacs, they're dying, like they've been corrupted, and they're not going to survive much longer. And then someone starts yelling Abby and Alex's name in the distance, and Abby's like, "Wait, that sounds like Liz. We're over here." And it turns out that Liz has run over there because Chester is in the hospital and Wallace was killed by that truck. And the best thing about this is that Liz Tremaine has come here with her brother, I guess because she can't drive or something. And so her brother drove her, and her brother didn't know anything about Swamp Thing. So as she was running up to Swamp Thing and Abby, her brother was following her, and he sees Swamp Thing, and he's just got this look on his face like, like he's just flabbergasted at what he's seeing. So as he stands there dumbfounded, Liz begins to tell them that there's been toxic waste being brought to the Sunderland company that has just opened up. And Swamp Thing, when he hears that, is very, very, very angry. So he hands the plant baby that he had in his hands over to Abby, and he just disappears and goes inside the green. And he narrates, "The green swims past as I follow the tainted trail, the poisons and pollutants entering the food chain. The spring of the damage follows from here, in fountains of colorless and tasteless death. The vegetation I have gathered to shape my body silently weeps of the pain it has felt, confused as to why the water has rebuked it, burning its roots with strange stinging death." So he has finished traveling through the green, and now he has built a body and is about to go to the Sunderland Factory. But before he does that, he decides to have a look inside and see what's going on. And we cut to the inside of that factory as Swamp Thing takes over a plant that is hanging in the corner of an office. And one of the leaves on it actually grows an eyeball so that Swamp Thing can see what's going on. And what he's seeing is like a manager of the Sunderland Corporation talking to the driver. And the guy's saying, stay calm. We'll take care of the police. Just stick to the story. You thought they were letting you pass, and then a couple of them jumped in front of your truck before you could stop. You didn't mean to hurt anyone. And don't worry about your rig. You deserve a bonus, scaring off those troublemakers. Sunderland Corporation takes care of its own. So as this manager is talking, he gets a cup to get some water from the water fountain. And as he does, we see that Swamp Thing has grown roots under the building. And we see that there's two pipes. One is the water pipe and one is the danger toxic material pipe. And he swaps them. So as this guy is getting water out of the fountain, I'm assuming it fills up with contaminated toxic water. But Swamp Thing doesn't just stop there. He also just kind of takes out the entire building. And we see that he's growing roots and attacking the electrical vaults and also like the control panels and stuff of the factory. And also just having the earth swallow up the toxic waste. And eventually he just takes out the whole building. And while these panels are going on, he's narrating, "The time has come for the suffering to cease. For me to take reign of my hands, of my thousands of digits, the anger, the anguish, the green must be felt. The ants tossed from her back, their tattooed mounds peeled away. Sunderland will know who has done this. They have collections of my work. Hopefully this time they will decide to stay home. And then we get a great panel of the whole building as it had been destroyed by Swamp Thing, just in flames burning. So hopefully, I don't know if all those people were dead in there now or they got out. They don't show them getting out, so it looks like everybody pretty much died. And then Swamp Thing, as he's staring into the fire, says, "This battle is finished, but what to gain? Their last shot still echoes, still sings, still kills." And he looks down and he sees the toxic waste-ridden water filled with dead fish, and he continues his narration. "I must gather within me the toxic veil which shrouds the land, before its strands reach even further, before there are more casualties in this war." And then we come back to Abby, who's kind of worrying, obviously, because Swamp Thing just vanished, and she's holding Tefe and just kind of, saying, "It'll be all right." And then Swamp Thing calls her name, and she turns and she sees that his body is totally corrupted and like kind of melting, and there's all these like weird pustules and boils that are made of like purple toxic waste, I'm assuming. And she says, "Alec, what happened to your body?" And he says, "Don't come close. I walked back and gathered inside me the toxic waste along the way." And then he looks around the area and sees all the dead baby carcasses from the Swamp Thing babies that were born. And they've all started to decompose and kind of fall back into the earth. And then Swamp Thing narrates, "I feel northward along the river, the land itself becoming my flesh. In every stream and tributary, the night ritual has begun. The pollutants of men scalding my lifeblood, searing my insides down every vein." And then he leaves that toxic body and grows a new one next to Abby, and he says, "I could destroy them all this night, but what would man learn? This is his problem to solve, his world to save." And then Abby and Alec and Tefe watch the body that was corrupted by the toxic waste that he just left begin to dissolve and like decay right in front of them. And Abby asks, "Is everything all right now? Is it taken care of?" And then Swamp Thing says, "Everything has returned to normal." And that is the end of the issue. So if you guys have any comments, questions, or suggestions, you can email me at planes, trains, and comicbooks, all one word, at gmail.com. And remember, stay swampy.